it's a tough balance, isn't it? Like, because there's like I don't know if we started recording when you said this, that it's expensive, with editing and
Yeah,
hiring out a graphic artist, to do your covers, having proofreading, editing. It's if one has the financial capital to do that, and then put the book out there cheap, I'm all for it. I would love to have thousands of people read my books and not care about what they're priced. So
yeah.
like there's like this this balance or this tension. I think authors, especially if you feel burdened and you've got like something from God that you want to share with as many people as possible, you want it to be accessible, and
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really I've got a prophetic website where people request a prophecy and it costs them 30 Australian dollars, and the Lord led me into that last July. I got
I wanna ask you about that.
yeah, I got a
And
prophecy from
you
Jeremy
probably
Lopez.
yeah, and you probably know the question I'm going to ask you.
How do I feel that I can charge?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't have a judgmental aspect of how I'm going to ask you that, but that is something I'm curious about, and I've read some of the things on your website where you explain that, and I respect that. So I'll give you space to talk about that, obviously, and
Radio. Well, first of all, it wasn't even on my radar, and I pay a guy called Jeremy Lopez to give me prophetic words every few months, or whenever I feel like I want a bit of direction or I want some insight from someone else. And so I pay him 40 American dollars, and I'm pleased to pay it because his prophecies always have direction in it for me, like words of wisdom, and they're always really helpful, and it's worth the money. And that's the argument with books. When you make your books for free or 99 cents, are people really valuing what you've got to say? When they've paid $9.99, they place more stock in what you've said because they've spent hard money to get it, and so they would consider it more importantly than a free book. I used to pay him, and then he came out with this prophecy that said, I'm going to go into business, and business wasn't even on my radar. And I saw advertisement for a prophetic site run by Kent Simpson, and you could join up and be on his prophetic team and charge for prophecies. And I read his reasonings for charging for prophecy, and decided to join up with him. But what I realised, and I started my own site at the same time. I started my own website at the same time and advertised it on my Facebook groups. And I was getting more work from my own website, and I only got 2 prophecy requests through Ken Simpson's site, but you had to pay him like 200 Australian dollars a month, like for rent on his site. And so it wasn't even covering that, so I dropped off that. But I'd already taken the plunge to start my own, what it was as a business, because it couldn't be a ministry because it is too much complication to be a tax-free status, and it was above my pay grade. And so I got this accountant for $40 an hour that would do my books, and he told me how to do an Excel spreadsheet and do my income and expenses on that sheet. And he solved my trepidation about going into business. But so I've that's been going successful, and that's been paying for my books. I published 6 books last year, and they've all been funded by people requesting prophecies.
okay.
Now,
So
regarding
can I jump in on that? So
yeah,
um, the way you're able to uh, publish books and make them so cheap that the books aren't profitable for you is because you're getting income, or you're getting finances from this other way of
source,
blessing people
yeah,
who are paying for what they value in it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm understanding you right.
Yeah, so I get about $500 a month from prophecy requests, about 15 prophecy requests a month. And what I can say is it really comes down. My mother explained it simply. In Africa, they used to give the people in Africa clothing, and they'd give them good clothing, and they'd turn up all muddy and wrecked with holes in them and stuff. And the Africans didn't respect the clothing, and so they decided to charge just a little bit of money for the clothes. And they found that the Africans treated it like their Sunday best, and the clothes stayed in a good condition, and they really looked after the clothes because they'd bought them. And there's something to the fact that when you get something free, you don't really have much weight. There's not a lot of weight in it.
Right.
I've run prophetic websites for years. Like I've done 10,000 prophecies for free, and I found that when you run prophetic websites on Facebook, people they join 6 free prophetic websites and request a prophecy off all of them, and we had to put a limit on one of the groups that I started to run. That you could only request a prophecy once a month, and now it's run by someone else, but it's once every 3 months. People just have got this insatiable appetite to get prophecies, but in a good prophecy, it should have a word of wisdom. It should have a direction, like a direction of God. And if you don't do the directions, if you don't obey God in the directions, it holds off the prophecies, and the prophecies don't materialize in your life because you're not doing what God said to do. It's if you do this, then I'll do this sort of situation with a lot of prophecies. So, you can't be, if you're called to the nations to be a famous preacher, your prophecies might come out with, I want you to study the word more, and I want you to bury yourself in the word. And if you take 10 years to obey that, well,
Hmm.
it'll be 10 years before you're invited to the nations because you've
Right.
got to know the word. So these people that skip and hop between prophetic websites, they're getting told things off the Lord, but they're not doing it. But if you pay $30 for a prophecy, you're more likely to do what God said to do. Not always. I see you nodding your head. Not always. Well,
Well,
then that would
I'm
be
basic. No, I that nodding that you see me doing is like,
yeah,
uh-huh, okay. I'm tracking with you. Because if you were to tell me, let's just put it this way, on Twitter or my website and stuff, I have people that contact me, and they're things like, yeah, check out this ministry of, if you PayPal me and I'll deliver you a prophetic word. 2 or 3 years ago, I just delete those. I'm just like, pfft, you know, peddling the word of God or whatever my reaction would be, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But then I don't know if it was on your site or I saw you post in the writers group or something, where you explained kind of like what you're explaining now about when people they value things more of that they pay for. I'm like, okay, well, as an author and people who buy my book are usually the ones who read it or they contact me about it or they sometimes review it or whatever. That's different than when it's given away free or it's cheap. So it's like, from writing and having invested a lot of my own capital to do that, like this microphone sitting here in my face, coming up with the money or having people bless me so that I can afford things that are like an investment that doesn't pay tangible cash, but has value in these other ways. I get that. I get I get that. I have less. No, let's just say, if you and I talked 3 years ago, I would have had a harder time swallowing
Yeah,
it
yeah.
if you telling me about charging for prophecies. But I'm in 100% agreement with you that people value things more that they pay for it than if it's just free. I've seen that
And
in my ministry here.
And do you know what I found? I've at least close to half, or between third and half the money I've earned since July when I started my website has been donations that people have just given me money. 3 people have given me over $500 just as a love offering. And for 5 years, I ran the email prophecy website, and I only had 5 people donate money. I had on the thing, this is free, but Here's a PayPal, and if you feel led by the Lord to donate, we'd love your donation. Only 5 people ever felt led to give me money. They felt led to request a prophecy, and they felt led to get a prophecy, and only 1 in 5 people write back and say thank you and give
Hmm.
feedback. It was 1 in 5. After a couple of months of doing it, I said to the Lord, "You're going to have to answer me this one. I know you asked me to start the prophecy website, but you're going to have to answer me. Why aren't people sending me? I ask them for feedback and ask them to give a response. Why are only 1 in 5 people giving me a response? If you don't answer me this question, I'm going to give this up." And he said, "Remember when I healed the 10 lepers?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Only one of them came back and said, thank you."
Wow.
And I said, "Yeah." And then he laughed and he said, "You're getting twice the response of me."
Wow.